Hello and welcome to another Japanese from Zero Japanese Daily. This is Japanese Daily number 130. Wow, that means this one goes on YouTube. But there was 4 other really awesome ones that you missed right before this. Where can you watch them? You can watch them on yesjapan.com. They're free. The last 5 are always free. Go there now. All right. By the way, you don't even need a membership to do that. You just go there, /video, and you're there. All right, today's topic came up because I was watching people try to dissect sentences in the Yes Japan chat room, which is yesjapan.com/ASK. You can go in there if you have a membership, which are free. And I noticed that there's some really, really good students there on Yes Japan in the chat room. They're high level. Germs is one. Unko-kun, an unfortunate name, but a very, very good user. And I've left the air conditioning on. Bear with me. We're going to leave that going. And a guy named V-Spin. There's all sorts of really, really smart guys in there. And they're not only smart at Japanese, but they're really good at actually helping. So they're like, all right, well, let's work through it. Like the guy will say, what does this mean? Some guy will throw it up. What does this mean? And it's a really complicated sentence. And Unko-kun or Germs will say, oh, okay, let's work through it. Well, what words do you recognize? And I'm looking at it, and I just saw that same guy say, like 5 minutes ago, he's on lesson 2, course 1. Frankly speaking, it's going to be almost impossible for him to work through that sentence. But yet he's posting these very complicated sentences. So that's bound to happen when you're learning Japanese. So let's talk about how to be effective in Japanese when you have these sort of problems. What can you do? Let's look at what we're going to do is we're going to go through some problems and we're going to go through some solutions. All right. First problem. You can't say what you want. It's very typical when you learn any language that you're going to be very frustrated. But there is a solution. And I use this solution all the time, even now in Japanese. But I don't have to think about it anymore. It's automatic for me. Let's look at this sentence. Let's look at this really big sentence. I really don't feel like going today because I have a headache. That's what you want to say. That's perfectly cool, right? I really don't feel like going today because I have a headache. Now, those of you that know Japanese to a high level, before I go to the next slide, think about what that could be. And for those of you that don't, sit back for a second. Let's look at it. 頭痛だから今日は行く気がないです. Literally, because of a headache. Because I have a headache. You could say a variety of different ways, but it's still, this is the most complete version of what we had before. I really don't feel like going today because I have a headache, all right? So, let's say you don't know the word 頭痛. And you don't know how to connect sentences with kara. And you don't know how to take a verb and modify ki. These are big concepts when you're learning. They really are. And I don't think people realize that these sort of things, this is 3 grammar in one sentence that you'd have to know. If I showed this sentence to a beginner, there's almost no way he could break it down and figure it out. It's just, it's not there. And I think today when I was in the chat room, I felt like I was coming off as elitist, and I don't mean to do that. But when you're learning Japanese, you have to work with the level that you are and build it up as you go. Yes, this would be an excellent hurdle. But I've heard people say, now that I'm in book 1, I'm going to try to translate this anime. And I don't like to say this, but pretty much impossible. Now, if that is how you are studying, and you're going to take that and you're going to study and study, but that's good. But you got to understand that the one sentence in an anime might have 5 or 6 basic grammar principles that you need to know before. And really what you're going to end up doing is getting frustrated. And I've seen it. I've seen people quit over stupid things like that. Trust me, I have been very frustrated with Korean for the same reason. Because I sometimes forget my own rules. And I want to go more and more complicated. Here's the solution. All right? You're going to say less, and you're going to break it up into more sentences. In other words, simply said, You're going to do what you know how to do. When you were a kid and you didn't know how to drive a car, you rode a bicycle. Before you knew how to ride a bicycle, you rode a scooter. Before that, you walked. Before that, you crawled. It's the equivalent of what we're doing here. You can't jump right to driving. You must get on a scooter first. You must crawl first. So let's look at how we can break down that very complicated sentence. You can say, I'm sick, maybe. Very simply, I'm sick. My head hurts. Either one of those. I don't want to go, or I can't go. Or I'm not going to go. There's all sorts of things you could say to break it up. Let's look at some of the simple sentences you could say. Byoki desu. Now, that sentence alone requires literally one grammar concept. Des, which you learn in Book 1, Course 1 of Japanese from Zero. Book 1, Lesson 1. That is the first thing you learn after the pre-lessons. It means I am sick. Now, the word byoki you wouldn't know, but you could look that up. And you could say the sentence. Byoki desu. Or, a little bit more advanced, atama itai desu. Or, atama ga itai, if you want to get technical. You don't need the ga, that gets dropped quite a bit. Let's look at the other parts. Ikitaku nai desu. I don't want to go. You can just say that. Atama itai desu, or byoki desu, ikitaku nai desu. Now, ikitaku nai is a little bit strong, and there are better ways to do this type of a sentence, but it doesn't matter at this state, because this is what you can do. Remember, your goal of speaking Japanese is to communicate to the other person your desires, your wishes, and to understand their desires and wishes, right? To have communication back and forth, to get information, to ask for information. You're relaying information, you're saying, I can't go today because I have a headache. You don't know how to say headache? Guess what? Byoki desu. Now, you might learn how to say headache as a result of saying that. Like, what's the matter? What's the matter? Atama itai. And they go, oh, zutsu. You have a headache. Okay, and you write it down in your notebook. So what if you don't know ikitaku nai, which is again a concept of conjugating a verb into a negative of its of its want to do form, right? I think, is that volitional? Those of you that are in the chat room that have used other books, I honestly hate grammar words. Is that what volitional is, the want to do form? Just let me know and I'll look in a second after the delay. Anyway, let's say you couldn't say all of those and you just knew how to say ikimasen, which is taught in lesson 12 of book 1, still a very basic book. Japanese from Zero is very basic. And that's an extremely basic verb form. So you could just say, byoki desu, ikimasen, and you have accomplished that very complicated concept of relaying that you're sick. All right, let's look at another problem. You can't understand what's being said. Oh man, that's a big one. Happens to me all the time in Korean. Very, very frustrating. But there are things that you can do to make that a better situation. Number one, you're going to have to use your Japanese to help you. You're going to use your Japanese to help your Japanese. Here's some phrases that I assume level 1 people, book 1 people, whether on yesjapan.com levels or in the book, you already know this because it's taught in the first lesson. Motto yukkuri itte kudasai. Do not be embarrassed to ask them to slow down. They don't realize they're being fast. We do it in English all the time. We do it in English all the time. You know, when words are fast, you can't hear where they're stopping and where they're ending. And you're going to have to ask sometimes. Maybe you want them to repeat it. Mou ichido itte kudasai. Mou ichido itte kudasai. Very simple to say. Here's one that isn't in the book, but sometimes Japanese people speak really low. This is a problem. Japan's a very quiet country. It's a very quiet country. Seriously. Even Korea was a very quiet country. When I came back to America, I was a lot quieter. And I remember I was much more irritated with my children for being loud. They were very loud. And everything was loud. I'm back to being loud again because I'm in America. What if you couldn't hear them? Just ask them. Sumimasen. Excuse me. Kikoemasen deshita. I couldn't hear you. Kikoemasen deshita. Mou ichido itte kudasai. You could say, motto ookii koe de itte kudasai. Motto ookii koe de itte kudasai. Please say it in a louder voice, or literally a bigger voice. All right, here's another problem. Japanese people don't understand me. Wow, that's pretty bad when that happens, right? But it's going to happen all the time because they don't expect you to speak Japanese. This exact discussion also came up today, and it's very true. And I've talked about it on dailies before, but they just don't expect you to say Japanese. Now, I saw someone had a really good suggestion that I don't have in the PowerPoint. But if you go up to a Japanese person and all of a sudden start speaking Japanese, they're not ready for it. Someone said this, and I forgot what the name of the term he used was, but he said say like words that notify them you're getting ready to speak Japanese. For example, or sumimasen. When they're looking at you, when they've turned their head, boom, you got them. Now you can speak Japanese and they'll probably understand you. I used to literally go up to girls randomly on the street and talk to them, and they would just not be ready for it. And plus, my Japanese probably sucked back then. So here's some solutions, right? That was one. Say a word and wait for their attention to be on you. Speak louder and repeat. This is a very simple concept. Just like Japanese people speak too low, a thing happens when you're speaking Japanese and you don't know what you're doing. You get very quiet and you get very nervous. And you don't want to make a mistake, so your body tenses up. And you say it very quietly. It's very nerve-wracking, right? I do this in Korean all the time. I'm going to admit this. I break this rule all the time, so I know exactly what you're going through. Exact same thing used to happen to me in Japanese. But if you speak louder, they will hear you. And trust me when I tell you, Japanese accent, you can screw it up really bad. But the sounds are so distinct, a, I, u, e, o, that they will understand it. A, u, e, o, kagikugiko. They're going to understand it pretty much. Ooh, God, that's not bad. So speak it up. Speak it up. Speak up louder, right? And don't change what you said when you repeat your thing. Say the same thing again. Japanese people do this all the time. You say you didn't hear what they said, they change what they said. God bothers me. I don't have a solution for that, sorry. All right, so here's the thing else you can do. Another thing you can do. A thing else you can do. Look at how bad my English is. I apologize for Haru. I know Haru's in the chat room watching. He's Japanese. At least he was in the chat room. Don't see him anymore. This is a phrase you can use after you've said something and they seem to have a puzzled look on their face. You could say, Watashi no Nihongo ga wakarimasu ka? Do you understand my Japanese? Watashi no Nihongo ga wakarimasu ka? Problem number 4. I didn't understand every word, or you don't understand every word. That's very common. You'll hear some words that you know, and by the way, there's always 10,000 more words that you don't know. Unless, even me, honestly, I'm sure there's hundreds of thousands of words I don't know. There's a lot of words that Japanese people don't know. So what's going to happen when that happens? What do? You accept it. Remember, not understanding is the conversation. What do I mean by that? Well, when you don't understand something, that becomes the conversation. They are going to explain to you what that word means. When you get to a certain level in Japanese, almost every word you learn after a certain point will be done in Japanese. So every time you ask a question about a word you didn't understand, you are learning something new. And you can do that with this. Now the maru maru, the little circle, that's where the word goes. Let's say you heard a new word. Let me think of a really good one. Consento. Someone says, Consento arimasu ka? And you don't know what that means. Consento? Is that kanji? Is it katakana? You know, that's a good phrase too. You could say, katakana no kotoba desu ka? Is that a katakana word? That's a good one. I should have wrote that in there. Katakana no kotoba desu ka? Katakana no kotoba. Kotoba means word or phrase. Desu ka? And you could even say, kaite kudasai. Please write it. Kaite kudasai. That's a good one. Matter of fact, do what I do. Carry a notebook wherever you go and have them write it in there. Or open up a notepad on your whatever device you have and say, utte kudasai. Utsu is to type. Utte, chisai tsu in there. Utte kudasai. Right? But if you don't have any of that, you can just say, Consento te nani? What is the consent? What's the consent? Wow, where'd that come from? Because I took consento, which is a katakana word, by the way, and I turned it into consent. I don't know why consento means what it means, but guess what? It means outlet, electrical outlet. Consento. And he was asking you, do you have an electrical outlet? This might happen if you have a friend that's come to your office or to your house and they want to plug in their laptop. They're going to need a consento, an electrical outlet. Autoretto. You think it would be autoretto, but no, it's consento. So there's two ways to do it. You can say consento te nani, which is very informal, or consento te nan desu ka? What is this consento thing that you said? That's it. Those are some of the things you can do to be more effective in Japanese. Thank you for watching. I'll see you on the next Japanese Daily. Bye-bye.